Welcome to the Breakup Recovery Podcasts by your host, Barbara Stevens. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Barbara Stevens, breakup recovery mentor, author, and public speaker. Barbara offers programs and solutions for any breakup so you can turn your life around, create lasting changes for the better, and embrace life again.
Hello and welcome to Breakup Recovery. I'm Barbara Stevens, your host, and this is episode number 038. Today I welcome back Kathy Daniel, who is an intuitive kinesiologist. Kathy is going to share a technique she developed and uses for people and clients who are recovering from a breakup. So welcome, Kathy.
Thank you for having me.
So Kathy, tell me how and why did you develop this technique?
Well, Barb, it's quite a story. A couple of years ago, something happened and I was quite traumatized by it and had the classic symptoms of trauma with the flashbacks, and my mind was dwelling on distressful thoughts and there was distressing emotions as well. And as a kinesiologist and a practitioner that works with clients all the time, you really need to be in this calm, centered space to be with your clients. And I wasn't able to achieve that space. So I knew my effectiveness with my clients was slipping. And of course, I need an income to live. So I knew I had to develop a really effective technique to sort this out and really quickly. I was seeing other practitioners, psychologists and counselors, and it was just stirring me up and actually making me much more emotional and much more unsafe emotionally in me. Also, as an intuitive, I knew that all distressing emotions and thoughts actually appear in the energy field as dark energies. And I also knew that all dark energies in the energy field relate to thoughts that we have about ourselves and life, where we feel that we're not good enough and we feel that we can't have and do what we want in life. So I knew that that was the key to the answer. So what I started asking myself was, what has really upset me about the situation? How did I feel about that? And then from there, in those feelings, how did I feel about myself and life? So then I started to create these problem statements, which were I am, which is how I feel about myself, and life is, that's how I felt about life, when X was happening, so the trigger. Then I knew this amazing, very simple to utilize yoga / kinesiology pose or posture. So what I would do was then flip the problem statement 180 degrees to a goal statement. So I am, so instead of feeling, say, for instance, worthless or discarded, I would go, well, I'm wanted, I'm worthy. And life is, say, for instance, the problem was dark and oppressive. I'd say light and expansive for life. So I am worthy and wanted, or worthy and accepted. And life is light and expansive, even when that trigger happens. And then I would hop into that posture and I would say that statement with meaning and conviction. And I would find that the emotions would start to build and they'd get quite almost like a tornado of emotions happening, and then it would pass through. And then I would find that that trigger, that particular issue was not a problem for me anymore.
Kathy, can you just explain to me the emotions passing through would look like for somebody else?
Okay, so what it would look like is that you're sitting there and you might feel sad or angry or anxious, and then it's like those emotions build and then release, and all of a sudden, instead of feeling those emotions, you feel centered, you feel connected, you feel light and expansive within yourself.
So how often would somebody have to do this technique?
Once you've done it that first time, you don't need to do it again. You don't need to repeat it over and over. But say if there is another trigger, then you will need to repeat the process for that trigger.
Can you tell me about, you don't have to go in specifics about one particular person, could you tell me how this could help somebody who has just gone through a divorce or a separation or a breakup?
Well, usually when there's been a relationship breakup, there's a couple of key things that a person feels really wounded around. And it can be around finances, it can be around emotional support, it can be around the children spending time with your ex's new partner. And usually those things have a great deal of emotional angst in them. And so, for instance, a client might have the situation where when they were in the relationship, when they wanted to be emotionally intimate with their partner actually shut them down and or didn't listen to them and then kind of moved away. So the analogy of that is a gift of intimacy, emotional intimacy, has been rejected by the partner. Now, as you know, women only share things that are important to them to people that they love and that are really important to them. So if you're not important to that person, they're unlikely to share those things that really matter to them. It sounds like a little thing, but it's a huge wound for people if those intimate sharings are rejected or not validated or not appreciated. And then, of course, when a person the relationship has ended, they've been left by a partner, then they feel not only were their emotional gifts of intimacy, but also they were discarded. And so it can get this double trigger going on in them about feeling rejected and discarded. And every time they see them with the new partner, their ex-partner with the new partner, then it can really ignite that wound and make it even worse. So what you do, you go through the process and you sit down with the person and ask them what are the triggers, what things upset them, and they'll give you a list. And then I tend to ask them which is the trigger that if it changed would bring the most amount of resolution for them, the most benefit in their life. So we choose that one and we work on it. And I literally ask them, talk to me about the trigger, and when that trigger is happening, how do you feel? And then how do you feel about yourself and how do you feel about life? And we create that problem statement of I am, whatever it is, and life is, even when whatever the trigger happens. Then the tricky thing is actually helping the person to switch at 180 degrees, because often people think that once they're stuck with this situation, they can't shift it, or they can't shift it well, or they can't shift it to a really optimal situation. So with a bit of coaching, we kind of help them find what they really want to feel about themselves and life instead, create the goal statement of I am, and life is, even when that trigger is still happening. And then I get them to hop into that posture. They say the statement with meaning and conviction. And they often feel waves of emotion come up and pass through. And then eventually they get to this feeling where they feel warm and centered and calm within. And then it's cleared.
So it's almost a letting go of negative emotions that people are holding on to.
It is. We feel the emotions, but really what we're doing is we're actually letting go of the thought pattern, the belief that they're not good enough or there's something in life that they can't have or do.
Do some people find it quite difficult to get to that point of being able to name the emotion and be able to name the trigger?
Barb, that's the skill of a practitioner. We just gently ask from all directions until the person is able to say the words or come to the awareness for themselves. Some people click into it really well, others are challenged, but that's okay. With skilled questioning and gentle questioning from a practitioner, you find them.
So, Kathy, not only, I guess, this technique could be used when someone is going through a breakup, but could it be used in any other situation?
So it can be used for all the situations that come up in a person's life when they're trying to build a new life after the breakup. Perhaps it's getting out there and getting a new job, a new career. Perhaps it's going into a new relationship. So there can be lots of big emotional challenges that come up when you're going back into the workforce or when you're getting out there and being social and single again. And once again, those dark energies, as an intuitive, I see them pop up in their energy field. Just ask the person about them, go through the questioning. And it's quite interesting. One of the classic things is girls will be out there dating and it's like, well, why didn't he ask me for my number? I've talked to him 3 or 4 times when we've been out, at this particular venue or whatever, and he's not interested in pursuing the friendship any further. And the women feel really, really wounded in relation to this, and they take it personally. So just by through doing the work, asking the questions, hopping into that posture, and then letting the release happen through, all of a sudden they can go out there and be social and just allow their beautiful personalities to shine. And once their own innate personalities shine, all of a sudden it's quite easy for them to be single and to be social and to find new people to repartner with. And it's interesting, once they do repartner, then things that have happened in the past that set up triggers for them, if that partner inadvertently does that same thing, it doesn't need to have the same attachment to it. It's just, say, for instance, the analogy I'll give, there was a lady where a previous partner, he would shut her out by wearing headphones all the time. So he's constantly either watching television or listening to the radio using headphones. So when a new partner put on headphones while he was doing a chore, which was just for a small part of the day, that would really upset her and she would become hysterically emotional. So once again, we went through the process. What was the trigger? How did she feel when that trigger happened? How did she feel about self? How did she feel about life? Gained a problem statement and turned it 180 degrees to a goal statement, hopped in the posture. And after that, when the new partner put on the headphones, it's not a problem at all.
Didn't affect her one bit.
No, and that's the one thing that people say, that after doing this work, those issues just aren't a problem anymore.
If someone wanted to contact you or work with you, can they do it on Skype? They don't have to be in front of you to do this technique?
Barb, it works really well via Skype and phone. And yes, they can just contact me on my email address and we can set up a time and see whether there's a good fit between themselves and myself to work together, yes.
I say, Kathy, can you let us know what your email address is?
Sure. It's kathydaniel66@live.com. So that's KATHYDANIEL 66@live.com.
Kathy, thank you so much for sharing this technique. I'm quite sure people would be able to use this in all aspects of their life, not only just their breakups, but any particular problem that they had. So thank you once again for sharing.
Not a problem, Barb. I'm just letting you know that I do run webinar courses where I teach people to utilise this for themselves. And there are a few counsellors and psychologists that I have taught the technique and they use it in their practices, so I can always search a name and see if there's a fit with the person and the practitioner and pair them up as well.
Thank you, Kathy.
My pleasure, Barb.
If you would like to hear previous Breakup Recovery podcasts, visit barbarastevens.com.au. Connect with Barbara Stevens on social media with Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor on Facebook and at You'll Be Okay on Twitter. Read further blogs, view webinar replays, and download your free ebook, 3 Easy Steps to Surviving Your Breakup, and much more at barbarastevens.com.au.